When God begins to deal with you about protecting your spiritual atmosphere and inner boundaries, it is because He knows that destiny is not only shaped by what you do, but by what you allow. Every environment carries a climate. Every climate carries an influence. And every influence carries a consequence. There are atmospheres that elevate you and atmospheres that suffocate you. There are environments that oxygenate your purpose and environments that contaminate your confidence. There are people who stir your spirit and people who drain your soul. When God calls you into a season of focus, one of the first things He will confront is your atmosphere. Because atmosphere determines alignment, and alignment determines acceleration. You cannot rise while surrounded by voices that pull you down. You cannot expand while connected to people who are comfortable with smallness. You cannot carry divine strategies while dwelling in environments built around distractions. God will protect you by repositioning you. He will shield you by separating you. He will develop you by isolating you. When He begins to shift your atmosphere, it is not a demotion, it is a divine upgrade. Your spiritual atmosphere is the invisible ecosystem of your thoughts, emotions, conversations, relationships, and daily choices. It is the sum of what you expose yourself to, what you meditate on, what you tolerate, and what you internalize. Every atmosphere either feeds your momentum or steals it. Every atmosphere either aligns you with purpose or distances you from it. This is why God demands that you guard your inner boundaries with vigilance. Not everyone can have access to your emotions. Not everyone deserves access to your time. Not everyone can handle access to your vision. Not everyone is qualified for access to your peace. You must become spiritually discerning enough to recognize who carries life and who carries chaos, who brings clarity and who brings confusion, who supports your evolution and who benefits from your stagnation. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere is an act of stewardship. It means recognizing that what you allow around you eventually becomes what grows within you. There are certain atmospheres that God will not allow you to return to once He elevates your awareness. You may try to go back, but the peace you once felt will be gone. The comfort you once had will be disrupted. The fit you once felt will dissolve. This is not rejection, it is revelation. It is God letting you know that your spirit has outgrown the environment. When God enlarges your internal capacity, old atmospheres become too cramped to hold your destiny. You begin to feel the irritation of misalignment. You sense the discomfort of environments that once felt familiar, but now feel foreign. This is the spiritual signal that God is pushing you into new territory. You cannot stay in atmospheres that contradict your growth. You cannot remain in places where your potential is minimized. You cannot linger in environments where your identity is misdefined. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means being willing to leave what no longer nurtures who you are becoming. Your inner boundaries are the spiritual borders that safeguard your peace, clarity, energy, and purpose. Without boundaries, your destiny becomes accessible to anything and anyone. Without boundaries, your emotions become vulnerable to manipulation. Without boundaries, your spiritual energy becomes scattered. Without boundaries, your time becomes consumed by people and pursuits that distract you from your assignment. Many failures are not caused by lack of ability, but by lack of boundaries. Many delays are not caused by lack of opportunity, but by lack of protection around your spirit. When God calls you to protect your inner boundaries, He is teaching you to discern what deserves entry and what must be denied. He is teaching you to recognize the spiritual thresholds of your life, the places where access must be guarded, the gates where vigilance must be applied, the areas where compromise cannot be permitted. You must protect your atmosphere with the same determination that a watchman protects a city gate. When you begin to elevate, you must elevate your boundaries as well. Every new dimension demands a new level of discipline. Every new season requires a new level of intentionality. The version of yourself you are becoming cannot coexist with the environments that shaped the version of yourself you are outgrowing. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means adopting new patterns of thinking, new rhythms of prayer, new habits of stillness, new standards of interaction, new expectations for the relationships you allow into your life. You begin to realize that peace is priceless, and anything that costs you your peace is too expensive. You begin to recognize that clarity is a gift, and anything that disrupts your clarity must be removed from your inner circle. You begin to understand that your destiny cannot flourish in environments where your spirit is constantly unsettled. God is calling you to protect the inner sanctuary where He speaks, where He heals, where He instructs, where He guides, where He strengthens, and where He reveals the blueprints of your future. There will be moments when God allows certain relationships, conversations, or patterns to collapse because they can no longer coexist with your purpose. You may feel lonely in these seasons, but you are not abandoned, you are being upgraded. Isolation is not punishment, it is preservation. God removes you from atmospheres that are too noisy so He can heighten your discernment. He separates you from distractions so He can fine-tune your perception. He shields you from negativity so He can cultivate your faith. He distances you from draining relationships so He can replenish your spirit. You must trust that when God disrupts your atmosphere, it is because He is preparing you for the next dimension. You are being conditioned to handle greater responsibility. You are being equipped to carry greater authority. You are being sculpted to steward greater influence. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere is a prerequisite for stepping into divine assignment. Many people pray for elevation, but ignore the boundaries necessary to sustain it. Elevation requires insulation. You must protect yourself from the voices that speak fear into your faith, the people who plant doubt in your vision, the habits that sabotage your discipline, the environments that dilute your focus. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means creating distance between yourself and anything that disturbs your alignment with God. You must become intentional about what you consume emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. You must assess the effect of every environment. Does it bring peace or confusion? Does it strengthen or weaken you? Does it awaken your potential or numb your purpose? Does it push you forward or pull you backward? You cannot afford atmospheres that suffocate your becoming. You cannot afford relationships that distract you from destiny. You cannot afford conversations that derail your clarity. You cannot afford environments that dim your spiritual insight. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means understanding the power of silence. Silence shields you from unnecessary battles. It guards your emotional energy. It prevents you from speaking prematurely. It allows you to hear your intuition with clarity. Silence becomes a powerful boundary that protects your mind from external chaos. When you engage in silence, you create a buffer between yourself and the world's demands. You create room for divine instruction. You create space for spiritual recalibration. You create an atmosphere where your soul can breathe, heal, reflect, and reset. There are breakthroughs that require silence. There are revelations that require silence. There are instructions that can only be heard when the world is muted. Silence does not mean withdrawal. It means wisdom. Silence does not indicate weakness. It indicates maturity. Silence is a sacred boundary that protects your inner atmosphere so you can remain aligned with God's direction. There are people who carry peace and people who carry chaos, and you must discern the difference. Some individuals walk into your life and immediately elevate your spirit. Others walk in and immediately stir confusion. Some carry encouragement, clarity, and support. Others carry drama, negativity, and distraction. When you are protecting your spiritual atmosphere, you stop making excuses for toxic patterns. You recognize that not everyone deserves the privilege of proximity. You understand that boundaries are not barriers. They are filters. Boundaries ensure that only what aligns with your purpose can access your life. You begin to evaluate who adds value to your atmosphere and who drains it. You assess who amplifies your faith and who feeds your fears. You discern who honors your growth and who feels threatened by it. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means refusing to allow anyone or anything to hinder your spiritual stability. As God elevates you, your boundaries must evolve. You will find yourself becoming more selective with your conversations, more intentional with your time, more mindful of what you absorb, more protective of your peace. You no longer engage in arguments that do not advance your purpose. You no longer entertain gossip, negativity, or fear-based thinking. You no longer tolerate manipulation, disrespect, or emotional instability. You begin to realize that protecting your spiritual atmosphere is not about controlling your environment, but about choosing your alignment. Your atmosphere reflects your focus. Your atmosphere influences your productivity. Your atmosphere shapes your spiritual posture. When your atmosphere is protected, creativity flows. When your atmosphere is protected, clarity sharpens. When your atmosphere is protected, spiritual sensitivity heightens. When your atmosphere is protected, your spirit becomes a fertile ground for divine instruction. God is calling you to curate an atmosphere that nurtures your growth. This means creating space for prayer, reflection, solitude, learning, healing, and stillness. It means making room for practices that elevate your consciousness and strengthen your inner resilience. It means prioritizing environments that support your evolution. It means surrounding yourself with voices that challenge you to rise, relationships that inspire you to mature, and influences that align with the direction God is leading you. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere means actively choosing what empowers you instead of passively accepting what drains you. It means refusing to normalize chaos. It means refusing to tolerate dysfunction. It means refusing to engage in cycles that keep you spiritually depleted. Protecting your atmosphere is not a one-time act. It is a lifestyle. Your inner boundaries guide your emotional stamina. They protect your mental clarity. They preserve your spiritual vitality. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Boundaries teach your emotions how to behave. Boundaries teach your spirit how to stay aligned. When you protect your inner boundaries, you stop giving unlimited access to people who only bring limited value. You stop sacrificing your well-being for relationships that do not honor your worth. You stop bending your identity to accommodate environments that cannot handle your evolution. God calls you to protect your boundaries so your purpose can remain intact. Your boundaries create the space your destiny needs to breathe, grow, and flourish. Protecting your spiritual atmosphere also means mastering the art of detachment. Detachment does not mean disconnection from compassion. It means release from dependency. It means letting go of what no longer serves your growth. It means removing yourself from cycles that no longer align with your assignment. It means freeing your mind from beliefs that no longer support your evolution. Detachment creates room for divine realignment. It opens the door for new connections, new opportunities, new environments, and new dimensions. You cannot embrace the future while holding on to atmospheres that belong to your past. You cannot step into your next season while clinging to relationships that reinforce old patterns. Detachment is a spiritual act of trust. It is declaring that God knows what you need more than your comfort does. The more you protect your atmosphere, the more you protect your destiny. When your atmosphere is protected, your creativity cannot be hijacked. Your clarity cannot be distorted. Your discipline cannot be broken. Your faith cannot be shaken. Your peace cannot be stolen. God is calling you into a season where your atmosphere becomes a sacred sanctuary, where your boundaries become spiritual armor, where your inner world becomes fortified with strength, wisdom, and resilience. The more you protect your inner atmosphere, the more you become aligned with your assignment, anchored in your identity, and prepared for the magnitude of what God is releasing into your life. When God begins to call you into a season where you must become the architect of your destiny through alignment and obedience, He is not merely offering you an instruction. He is inviting you into co-creation with heaven, into a divine partnership where your decisions begin to shape the blueprint of your future. Your discipline becomes the scaffolding of your character, and your obedience becomes the foundation upon which your purpose is built. Destiny is not an accident. Destiny is engineered, constructed, cultivated, and manifested through deliberate alignment with the will of God. When you step into the role of architect, you begin to take ownership of the patterns you establish, the structures you allow, the systems you build within your mind, and the spiritual architecture you construct in your daily life. God reveals that obedience is not simply about following rules. It is about following the rhythm of heaven, about positioning yourself on the frequency of divine instruction, about allowing your actions to reflect heaven's intention for your life. This is where destiny stops being a distant idea and becomes an unfolding reality shaped by every choice, every discipline, every sacrifice, and every alignment God calls you into. Being the architect of your destiny means you begin to design your life with intentionality, refusing to let circumstances dictate your direction or emotions dictate your decisions. You begin to understand that your future is not built by chance, but by choice, by consistency, by character, and by the courage to obey God, even when His instructions disrupt your comfort. When God says you are the architect of your destiny, He is telling you that you carry the authority to design the internal structures that support your calling. These structures include your thought patterns, your belief systems, your emotional habits, your prayer rhythms, your daily discipline, and your spiritual posture. Many people desire elevation but maintain the architecture of limitation. They want divine expansion while operating with mindsets that shrink their potential. They pray for breakthrough while maintaining habits that block breakthrough. But when you step into intentional alignment with God, you begin to tear down the internal structures that sabotage your destiny and build new structures that sustain your future. You dismantle fear-based thinking and replace it with faith-based vision. You dismantle self-doubt and rebuild confidence rooted in identity. You dismantle procrastination and rebuild discipline. You dismantle cycles of inconsistency and construct patterns of perseverance. Becoming the architect of your destiny means you refuse to live as a spiritual tenant in a life you were meant to intentionally construct. You begin to take ownership of your thoughts, your energy, your time, your decisions, and your direction. Alignment is the invisible force that determines whether your destiny accelerates or stagnates. When your life is aligned with God's will, doors open effortlessly. Opportunities locate you, clarity strengthens you, and grace empowers you. Alignment does not mean perfection, it means agreement. It means your actions agree with your assignment, your priorities agree with God's purpose for you, your habits agree with your future, and your decisions agree with the identity God has spoken over you. When you walk in alignment, your life becomes synchronized with divine timing. You stop forcing outcomes that were never meant to be yours. You stop chasing validation that distracts you from purpose. You stop pursuing relationships that contradict your assignment. You stop entertaining distractions that dilute your calling. Alignment becomes the spiritual compass that keeps you on the narrow path of destiny, even when temptation, fear, or pressure tries to pull you away. Obedience becomes the construction tool of destiny. God does not reveal instructions to burden you, but to build you. Every instruction carries a blueprint. Every act of obedience constructs something within you: strength, maturity, clarity, resilience, spiritual authority. Obedience opens the doors your gifts alone cannot. Obedience positions you for opportunities that talent cannot access. Obedience stabilizes blessings that discipline must sustain. Many people pray for destiny but resist the obedience that activates it. They want prophetic fulfillment without practical alignment. They want divine promise without personal responsibility. But when God calls you to be the architect of your destiny, He is calling you into mature obedience, the kind of obedience that is not dependent on comfort, applause, or understanding. The kind of obedience that trusts God even when you cannot trace Him. The kind of obedience that obeys even when visibility is limited, because faith becomes your blueprint when details are hidden. Becoming the architect of your destiny means redefining your relationship with responsibility. You begin to understand that your life is shaped not only by what God promises, but also by what you practice. You stop blaming circumstances for cycles that discipline can break. You stop waiting for motivation and develop mastery. You stop hoping for change and start creating change. You step into a spiritual maturity that recognizes destiny as a joint venture between your surrender and God's sovereignty. You become intentional about upgrading who you are so you can handle what God is giving you. You understand that God does not release destiny into disorder. He does not release opportunity into disorganization. He does not release influence into immaturity. He waits until your internal architecture can support the weight of what He wants to place on your life. This is why alignment and obedience are not suggestions, they are requirements. They are the scaffolding that hold your destiny in place. When you become the architect of your destiny, you begin to see your life as a construction site, active, evolving, under development. You stop perceiving delays as denial and start recognizing them as development. You stop seeing challenges as punishment and start seeing them as preparation. God uses difficulty as construction material. He uses disappointment as structural steel. He uses pressure as reinforcement. Every hardship builds something in you. Endurance, character, strategy, depth, spiritual sharpness. When you stop resisting the process, you begin to understand that nothing in your life is wasted because God uses all of it to strengthen the architecture of your future. You begin to see that every season serves a purpose, even the ones that feel uncomfortable or unclear. You develop spiritual architecture that can withstand storms, adversity, criticism, and unexpected change. You become unshakable because your structure is rooted in obedience and alignment, not emotion or circumstance. Destiny requires architecture because greatness requires structure. Purpose requires planning. Calling requires capacity. Many people desire to walk in influence but neglect the habits that build influence. They want spiritual authority but resist spiritual discipline. They want a strong future with a fragile foundation. But when you step into the role of architect, you begin to build the future you are praying for through the daily decisions you make. You align your actions with your intentions. You align your habits with your hopes. You align your character with your calling. You align your lifestyle with the greatness you believe God has placed inside you. Destiny is not magic. Destiny is management. It is the management of your time, your choices, your resources, your relationships, your emotions, and your energy. You cannot build a strong destiny with weak boundaries. You cannot build a powerful life with passive decisions. You cannot build a kingdom future with a casual mindset. As the architect of your destiny, you begin to honor the value of consistency. Consistency is the quiet force that transforms potential into reality. It is not loud, glamorous, or dramatic. It is steady, disciplined, committed, and intentional. Consistency is the bridge between prophecy and manifestation. It is the evidence that you take your calling seriously. God does not bless talent alone. He blesses consistency. He blesses stewardship. He blesses follow-through. He blesses those who do the work even when no one is watching. The architecture of your destiny is built not by dramatic leaps, but by steady steps. It is built by prayer, discipline, reflection, planning, faith, courage, and the willingness to evolve. You must create patterns that reinforce your purpose and eliminate patterns that sabotage your progress. You must choose routines that reflect where you're going, not where you've been. Alignment also requires purification, cleansing your intentions, refining your motives, and filtering your desires. You must ask yourself, does this desire align with my destiny? Does this habit support my future? Does this environment honor my identity? Does this relationship respect my evolution? Alignment means removing the people, patterns, and distractions that distort your direction. You cannot build a divine destiny with divided focus. You cannot construct a meaningful future while entertaining meaningless conversations. You cannot elevate your life while surrounding yourself with people who are committed to staying the same. When you protect your alignment, you protect your destiny. You begin to recognize that not every invitation requires your presence. Not every opportunity deserves your attention. Not every opinion needs your response. Alignment simplifies your life because purpose clarifies your priorities. Obedience sharpens your spiritual instincts. It trains you to hear the subtle whispers of God. It heightens your awareness of divine timing. It strengthens your ability to recognize when a door is from God and when it is a distraction disguised as opportunity. Obedience teaches you the difference between what is good and what is God. It teaches you when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to hold on and when to release. Obedience is the internal navigation system of destiny. It keeps you from making emotional decisions that lead to spiritual detours. It protects you from opportunities that look promising but lack purpose. It anchors you when life becomes uncertain. It grounds you when your emotions fluctuate. It stabilizes you when circumstances shift unexpectedly. Obedience is not restrictive. It is protective. It shields you from choices that sabotage your potential. To become the architect of your destiny, you must develop the courage to confront yourself. You must confront your excuses, your fears, your comfort zones, your avoidance patterns, your insecurities, and your limiting beliefs. You must dismantle the internal narratives that tell you you're not capable, not ready, not worthy, or not qualified. You must reject the lies that were planted in you by past experiences or people who could not see your worth. The moment you confront yourself is the moment you reclaim your power. You cannot architect your destiny while negotiating with the parts of yourself that prefer smallness. You must build a self-image that aligns with what God says about you. You must construct a mindset that supports greatness. You must cultivate a confidence rooted not in ego, but in identity. When you see yourself accurately, you build your future accordingly. Being the architect of your destiny also means taking radical accountability for your life. You stop waiting for rescue and begin pursuing transformation. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and begin creating momentum. You stop blaming others for your delays and start identifying the internal shifts needed for your advancement. Accountability accelerates destiny because it removes the excuses that keep you stuck. You begin to design a life that honors your gifts, your calling, your intelligence, your spiritual sensitivity, and your divine assignment. You begin to build systems that support your success. You implement routines that strengthen your spirit. You invest in habits that expand your capacity. You align your lifestyle with the legacy you want to leave. When God calls you into destiny architecture, He calls you to build in the unseen before anything manifests in the seen. You design internally what will eventually manifest externally. You cultivate vision before you see the results. You build discipline before you see progress. You develop character before you receive opportunities. You shape your mindset before you step into new environments. Destiny is built privately before it is revealed publicly. Your obedience builds silently until the day God unveils the structure you have been constructing through your decisions, your growth, your sacrifices, your realignment, and your resilience. You are not waiting for destiny. Destiny is waiting for you to build the internal architecture that can sustain the external manifestation of what God has planned for your life.